In this episode of Gareth Jones on Speed, we go to see a movie about the greatest name in Formula One. Hello, welcome to Gareth Jones on Speed. I'm Gareth, he's Zog.
Hello, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. We're recording this episode on January the 2nd, the first functional day of the new year. But instead of looking forward, we're looking back, Zog. We're looking at the history of the greatest name in motorsport.
Through somebody else's eyes, yes, we are.
What do you know about this film? What do you expect from it?
Well, I expect it to be good, first of all. I mean, Michael Mann is a terrific director. I'm a fan. He's very good at detail.
Okay.
You know, I think if you think about films like Heat and Lost the Mohicans, Thief, he's very good at how people do things, how people achieve what they are trying to achieve, how they rob that bank, how they break into that vault. So I think, given that there's a lot of kind of detail and complicated stuff and engineering, as well as human stuff, as well as people, human resources management, I guess you'd call it, in the Ferrari story, or the Ferrari story that we don't know quite what we're going to see. We know this is Ferrari 1957, the year of the last Mille Miglia. This is the period that it's centred on. I don't really know much more than that. I haven't actually seen a trailer. I've seen a couple of little clips. But I haven't seen a trailer, so there we go. Yeah, I'm expecting it to be good. I'm expecting it to be good on detail as well.
Good.
It will look fantastic.
I love what you said about him specialising in how things are achieved. That's going to make it very much a film for me, a how film, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Right, we better go in, otherwise we're going to miss the trailers and the ads before the start of the film.
And we need to get popcorn.
And we need to get popcorn and coffee. Right, we're going in, and we'll talk to you after we've seen this marvellous movie. Well, I say marvellous. Let's hope it's marvellous. Zog and I are now ensconced in a small pub in Soho with Italian beers. Cheers. Hang on, I'll have a sip of this first.
I'm just going to decant it.
And now we're going to discuss what we've just seen. All right. Marks out of 10.
I think I give it a 7.5.
7.5. Yeah, fair.
I think. I think. And ranking it, immediate reaction in terms of ranking it, among Michael Mann movies, I think it's kind of mid upper tier.
Yeah.
It's not Heat, it's not Lost the Mohicans, but it's better than, I think, Public Enemies. Certainly way better than The Keep. Upper middling Michael Mann, which is good. That is a very good film.
Right. I don't know any of those films. I think I've seen Last of the Mohicans, but not for 20 or 30 years. And I struggle to see Last of the Mohicans because I haven't seen the
first one.
The first of the Mohicans, or even the penultimate of the Mohicans. So it was tricky. But this is interesting because, when I go and see a movie, I much prefer not to know anything about the story at all and let the movie immerse me in someone's vision of a story, right? And let it unfold and no preconceptions. But because this was about Ferrari, and you and I are motorsport fans, I had to do a little bit of reading up beforehand because I don't know Enzo Ferrari's life story. So I kind of quick glance to try and get an idea of context. So if there was anything in the movie that seemed fantastical, I could find out whether it was actually really what happened in the movie. In real life, I should say. Fantastic is a great place for a movie, right? You want to make a movie about fantastic things, and the story of Ferrari is a fantastic story. But the narrow confines of this film, it's all 1957. It's about one event in Enzo Ferrari's life, arguably.
Yes.
I didn't quite know that. I was kind of expecting a whole biopic, the whole story. So, sod my preconceptions, this is what we got. Did it tell the story of that year clearly and accurately, in your opinion?
I think from what I recall of that event that year, it's fairly accurate. There's plenty of detail in there that is not accurate. I believe. I don't think it's stuff that, unless you're going to be fairly picky about motorsport history and events, I don't think it's stuff that I would be overly bothered about if you're telling the story well enough. And it does tell a good story there. And I think, you could sum up what he's doing in that film as telling three stories at the same time. You've got the story of Enzo's love life, his family life, his marriage, his affairs, his illegitimate son. The financial story of Ferrari, the never-ending crises. And then the sporting drama, and Mann is using the sporting drama of that year, and in particular the Mille Miglia, to kind of anchor the other stories. And I think they were taking a lot more liberties with some of the more peripheral events than with the sporting events. So, for example, and I don't think this is kind of giving away any spoilers, but there's a storyline to do with a check for a large amount of money. I think that is at best questionable whether that ever happened. There's some stuff to do with Ford and Fiat in there that did not happen in 1957, but it's an important part of the Ferrari story. But they've kind of squeezed it into this story. Yeah, they're telescoping into that in order that you can tell a bigger story about Ferrari. I think I think I'm okay with that. But one of the reasons I'm okay with that is that they're, I think, getting the feel of contemporary racing so well. I mean, the sound of that film was magnificent.
Wasn't it just?
Yeah.
That was my favourite element of the movie. Right from the word go, there's an opening sequence, a montage of archive footage of cars racing in 1927 in black and white, and they've overlaid on that close-ups of Enzo when he was a driver himself. It was the actor.
Yeah, the actor. But they did a good job of doing the fake Enzo with the real contemporary footage. And it was nicely done.
It didn't match perfectly. I have to say, the close-ups of the stuff on board the car were too static, from my opinion.
That's okay. If we want to go too technical, I think. I think that's okay, because again, to me, and I mean, we've both done enough work with cameras and editing and stuff that we're going to be maybe more sensitive to this. Mm-hmm. But I'm kind of perfectly okay with there being just a little sort of, a little thing in there that's telling you, okay, we're making this look like the contemporary thing, but actually we've made this bit up. And then you get the other bit of footage that actually is, some genuine contemporary footage that's a little bit shakier. It's not quite as steady, but otherwise looks the same.
The sound, though, I got distracted there, but the sound, from the moment that you hear Ferrari race cars on the circuit, the pounding that we got from the audio system in the Odeon in Leicester Square, I have to say they've got a good sound system there. It felt like you were standing trackside. It felt like you were hit by a shockwave as the car went by, and the roar of those engines. Yeah, absolutely. No, I had exactly the same impression, and I would certainly say, if you're a motorsport fan, if you're a car person who's interested in seeing this movie, go and see it in the cinema. Go and see it with a proper sound system, because you will appreciate you really will get a kick out of the way they get the visceral feel of the cars blasting by just a few feet away, and I believe they actually spent some time with some of Nick Mason's cars, recording some of his collection to get the right engine sounds for the right cars. You've just completed a loop for me there then. Nick Mason's daughter is married to Marino Franchitti, who appears in the film as a driver. Right. So probably the deal was Nick Mason said, you can have some of my Ferraris, but you've got to let my son-in-law drive them. I guess.
Fair enough. Well, well, you mentioned Rena Frickety. I mean, we also spotted. Well, you spotted Marc Genet in a little role. Driving a Ferrari into the factory. Oh, go and do the.
Well, Marc Genet is I don't know if he still is, but for a long time he was a Ferrari test driver.
Of course,
he may still have that title, so it was very fitting. Yeah, I was kind of, hang on, is that Marc Genet driving? Was it a Testarossa? We think it may be a Testarossa.
And then a little while later, as Sterling Moss is pulling away from the start of the Mille, I think I lent him to go, was that Ben Collins?
Yeah!
And sure enough, it was Ben Collins.
Really nice at these real drivers, wasn't it? For us.
Yeah, and they also got to use Patrick Dempsey, who is terrific driver and a terrific actor. I mean, that's that movie must have been a dream gig for Patrick Dempsey, he acquits himself beautifully in that role. Since we talk about actors, that is a well-cast movie in the major roles. Both Adam Driver and Penelope Cruz are terrific. I'm not quite sure whether all of the human drama in the film quite had the highs and lows, the dynamic that it really needs to work as a top-notch film if you don't have the racing side of it. I asked myself if I wasn't a car nut, would I have enjoyed that film as much? Would it have been a human drama that worked as well? I'm not sure.
I agree.
I think it worked a bit, but I think I would have found it a bit too slow.
It was slow. It was a steady start. It majors on Enzo's broken relationship with Laura, his wife, Penelope Cruz, and the tension in their relationship that's come about not only from Enzo's multiple affairs and, as it turns out, long-time second wife, 12 years or more, but also the way that they cope with the death of their son, Dino, the year before. That's a hard one on any relationship, but clearly Enzo had been doing his thing, according to the movie, for a very long time, and that much we understand to be true.
Yes.
The downside of that is that there's very little joy in their relationship, and there's very little joy in Enzo Ferrari throughout the whole movie. It's grim faces, it's arguments, it's tension, he was very good at resolving issues. I like the way that him and Laura horse traded over, okay, you give me half the shares of Ferrari and I'll give you $1 million or $1 million and I'll sign the check but I won't cash it and they resolve this stuff, which was kind of nice. He was a businessman, he's used to that, right? He would operate that way.
Yeah, and I did actually read the book that the screenplay was based on, the Brock Yates biography of Enzo Ferrari. It was a while ago that I read it, though, and obviously they took a very small section of that book to base most of the movie on. It's a bit in the middle, which we know from To Have and Have Not can be a very good way of adapting a book. Just backstory: Ernest Hemingway made a bet with the director of To Have and Have Not, who, to my shame, I now can't remember. Anyway, he and the director made a bet that he couldn't make a good film out of Hemingway's worst book. And so he said, I'll take that bet. What's your worst book? To Have and Have Not, he says. All right, so he takes To Have and Have Not, reads it, and then adapts one chapter into the film To Have and Have Not, which was the film that first saw Humphrey Bogart starring opposite Lauren Bacall. Anyway, and by basing the film on one chapter and throwing away the rest of the book, he made a magnificent film, and Hemingway agreed that he had made a good film of his worst book. So this technique can absolutely work. And also, on a writing note, the original script, although I think it has been further developed, was written by Troy Kennedy Martin, who wrote Z-Cars and who wrote Edge of Darkness, which...
What, Z-Cars, the BBC television series from the 60s and the 70s?
Yeah.
Wow.
And Edge of Darkness, the 1980s kind of nuclear... 1980s nuclear thriller, which for me, is still one of the very best things that British television has ever produced. It's if you've never seen Edge of Darkness, the original TV series, not the Mel Gibson remake, which isn't terrible, but the original. No, just watch it; it's amazing.
Okay, that idea you were talking about there of concentrating on one event or one part, one chapter. That 1957, it was pivotal in Ferrari's history. The story of the Mille Miglia in 57, where Ferrari beat not only Maserati but Mercedes and all comers, is a good one. I'm not sure that there was enough tension in the way that they told the story of that race. It didn't play out with, when you watch a race, when you hear the story of a race, you want to win, okay, they're winning, oh, they're on their back foot, oh, they're going to make it, and they just get over the line and win, right? The story of the Mille Miglia was very much the finale of the film, or towards the finale of the film. But I don't think it particularly lifted the mood of the film, which is quite sombre, because even, spoilers,
it is,
the horrors of the 1957 Mille Miglia, where 13 people died, 5 of them children. These are the people watching the race, plus a Ferrari driver. Horrific stuff. You want stuff that life and death in a movie. It's good for that, but I don't think they really played it up enough. Although that one shot of the horror of that crash, as it reveals all the dead and the absolute slaughtering of the driver, that was pretty memorable and shocking.
Yeah, and again, I think that was... the film did, I think, a very good job of showing of giving you a real sense for what racing at the time was like. And not just the physicality of the cars and the process of putting them together and getting them to go fast, but also the very unpleasant, the very nasty side, the danger, not just to the drivers but to the spectators, because this was not the only time in that era that multiple spectators were killed in action. I mean, Von Trips was another of the characters in that film. He also was killed in a crash that killed multiple spectators.
80 people, was that Le Mans?
No, that
52?
was Le Mans. That was Le Mans 55. But
55.
Yeah. But the point is that motor racing at the time was brutal on the drivers and sometimes on the spectators. And much as we romanticise the era for many good reasons, we should never romanticise that. It was absolutely terrible. And I think it's right that the film didn't shy away from that. That it didn't kind of glamorise that era of Ferrari and that era of motor racing without also saying, well, showing this happened also.
I think it's true that Enzo Ferrari lived in the shadow of death. He'd lost 2 of his best friends when he was younger, and he was very aware that his drivers were getting in their cars and they were either going to win or die. It's a generalisation, but he was aware of that, of the seriousness of it, and the instructions, as we see in the movie, that he gives to his drivers: you don't lift, you either win or die. He pretty much said that, didn't he?
Did he? I mean, that actually, since you say that, because in that scene, I was questioning whether he'd, did he ever give that explicit instruction to drivers? I'm not sure. I just don't know, so I wouldn't really want to speak to that. There were certainly other liberties with, like I say, things that were said or done that were compressed or changed to make the drama work better. Maybe that's one of them. I think as a broader portrait of what Ferrari was like as a man and what Ferrari was like as a company and a racing organisation, I think it's a good film. It's a good film. Whether so much of the detail is absolutely bang on.
Hey, we didn't go and see a documentary, did we? You always have to sort of suspend belief. It's a movie, it's an interpretation of the story to make it work for a general audience, right? Because if only motorsport fans go and see this film, it ain't going to sell. But if you can persuade everybody to come and see this film, it will sell. Ferrari's a great name.
It is, but there's this issue around films that are based on racing, racing movies. They traditionally don't make money, or Hollywood believes they don't make money. I think Michael Mann had this script for more than 20 years. He's been trying to get this film made for more than 20 years. And Michael Mann this is not a director who's made many failures. This is a man who was, he's directed, actually a fairly varied bunch of very successful, very, very good films. But he had a lot of trouble getting his Ferrari film financed because Hollywood is wary of racing movies. It took him this long to get it done. And he credits, in part, Netflix Drive to Survive with being one of the things that made it easier to get the money. It was only once Drive to Survive became as successful as it did that a lot of, money people in Hollywood thought, okay, actually maybe there is enough of a market here. Maybe there are enough people who are going to buy into a racing story that we can spend, this much money on a Ferrari movie rather than just spending the 20 or 30 million that he could have got more easily and could have made the film for, but it wouldn't have been that film, because there's a lot of money on screen there,
isn't there?
You were talking a moment ago about the Mille Miglia itself, the race itself, and how maybe the drama of the race, who's actually winning at the moment, how is that fight for the lead going? I agree that kind of maybe that wasn't told all that clearly, but what you did have was spectacular racing footage and wonderful visual and aural in the moment experience of that racing, of that wheel-to-wheel, I was going to say combat, that's not the right way, of that wheel-to-wheel competition. It's
there's one shot in particular I remember during the Mille Miglia, presumably up in the Italian Alps. I don't know exactly where it takes place, but an absolutely poetic image of Italian mountains with, I don't know, 5 red cars, Ferraris and Maseratis, nose to tail, right on top of each other. Now, I'm guessing that the Mille Miglia didn't actually work like that. The cars aren't bunched together entirely. There's passing and repassing, and there may be moments where the cars are on top of each other, but largely there's going to be a bit of distance.
More spaced out that way.
But probably. But it's a lovely image of the joy, and like you said, that visceral satisfaction. It was almost as if I could almost smell the oil and the rubber, could you?
Right. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, it was
they did that well.
I think whatever niggles one might have with the film, whatever little things one might find to criticise, I don't think anyone's going to be, coming away from that film going, they didn't have the sound of that Maserati right. No, that was that was the wrong Ferrari in that shot.
Having said that, I was curious.
Okay, right.
I was curious to see that Enzo drove around in a Peugeot 403. I had no idea. There must be a story as to why he drove a Peugeot and not a Lancia or an Alfa or...
Well, maybe he's a man who had respect for good engineering. Yeah. Peugeot made a decent car. Why wouldn't he drive a Peugeot?
Yeah. And it was designed by Pininfarina, I think. He did a lot of Peugeot design. Italian.
He probably got a deal on one,
But there's a scene where he gets in the car early in the morning and he freewheels it down the hill from his house where he lives with Laura and bump starts the car and then races to the Ferrari factory.
Yeah.
And he's got this, I don't know, what was it, a 1.8 litre 4-cylinder engine in that car or something. and it's rorting like a V8. That was my only criticism of it. No, they didn't really sound like that, even if they'd been tuned by Modena itself,
I wonder, yeah. We have to go back and check and check that.
But there was nothing in the movie that made me go, hang on, no, that didn't happen, that's impossible, that's ridiculous. I think you get in so many racing movies where two guys are neck and neck in some kind of drag race, and one of them changes down from fourth to third, puts his foot on the accelerator and overtakes.
Actually, no, I think they did that once. I think there was one moment where one of the drivers did that. Hang on a second.
Yeah.
I hadn't previously thought of changing gear and pressing the accelerator a bit harder. Why don't I try it now? Oh, I passed the guy. I think they did that once. And it's.
That's a kind of a standard for a movie, though, isn't it? In a car movie, that usually happens.
It's a standard for a movie, but I think, other than on that occasion, it completely rode above that territory. It didn't commit any of those sins. But I think there was maybe that one moment of change gear, press the loud pedal a bit harder.
Overtake everybody. And it wasn't a Hollywood movie. It wasn't crash, bang, and amazing things happened. It seemed very real, very visceral, a more considered movie, an almost intelligent, emotional story rather than a drama.
Oh, it is. Yeah, no. It was absolutely, a very human drama.
Yeah.
And it is quite sombre. I mean, you said that there wasn't, as you say, there isn't much joy coming out of Enzo and the relationship with his wife. It's a broken relationship, and we see them navigating this and finding a way forward alongside everything that's going on with the company that they control, and that's difficult. So it's not a bundle of laughs, but that's true to the story. That's true, to what happened. I mean, and let's remember also that the 1957 Mille Miglia was the last time they ran that race because of that accident.
I was reading about this. The court case regarding Ferrari or Pirelli's responsibility for the crash that killed not only the driver but 13 people in the crowd. That court case went on until 1961, where it was abandoned.
Really?
It was, the Italian law. Do you remember when Senna died at Imola?
Yeah.
Italian law held Frank Williams responsible for it, and that's unique to Italian law. It's different to other nations. There's a tension there, that adds to the drama of it. I think they could have made more of that. We're aware of the story. Hey, maybe we know too much.
I think if you'd added into that story a legal drama and then a drawn out legal battle to this story, no matter how true it is and no matter how how much it might have, how important it might have been, I think it would have weighed the movie down. I think they were right. I think it was perfectly legitimate to simplify that a bit. You have to cut some corners to tell a good story sometimes, to make a story work on screen. I think the choices they made were okay, and it meant that you got a balance of the sporting and the personal drama that in the end works well.
Was there anything in the movie that bugged you? Was there one moment that made you go, oh no, come on? We were sitting next to each other. I didn't sense any shoulder shrugging or discomfort. I didn't feel it either. It was authentic, wasn't it?
I think there was literally that one moment of, they did the change gear.
That was it.
There was that one moment.
Yeah.
No, there was one moment. I had quite early on in the film. There's this moment where, in fact, he does this a couple of times, where there's a kind of how do you describe it? There's a juxtaposition of the sound of cars at the track and the music of the cars at the track with music in church or music at the opera.
Yeah. Oh,
and,
yes.
And there's this this is a kind of comparison that is sort of often casually made in speech. You talk, the music that these engines make, the music of the cars, and we talk about a cathedral of motorsport, and there were a couple of moments where you have this this juxtaposition of those things of the music of the cars and then the sacred music in church or music of the opera, and then in the church there's another element that has to do with, well, we won't go into that, but they sort of weave something else in there that's kind of interesting. It could have been quite clumsy. It could have been a bit, it could have been
ham-fisted.
Yeah, it could have been ham-fisted and clumsy, and
but
just
it wasn't.
not. No, it was beautiful, and it was a very fine expression of that.
Talking about the opera moment,
it's the work of a master filmmaker.
Yeah. Subtle. There was a subtlety to it, wasn't there? Arguably too subtle, you might say. Because when you see opera in movies, there's usually some great life-changing death moment alongside it, and the big notes, and it's opera. It's everything. In this, it was a bit more intimate, wasn't it?
I mean, I wouldn't exactly say it was subtle, but I would say it was
appropriate.
It was very well crafted.
Yeah.
It was beautifully done. It's
Italy in 1957 is a lovely place to set a movie. The textures, it was a very textured movie. I noticed every time Enzo changed his suit or his cardigan or his vest, whatever it is he wears, his waistcoat, that yellow wool thing that he wore, and they were sitting down eating ravioli on a couple of occasions. They were drinking Italian red wine. You saw it. There was smoking. There was Alfa Romeos, there were Lancia Aurelias, there were Flaminas.
I noticed your reaction to the Lancia.
But I'm an Italianophile. I love all that. And it was delightful to be immersed in Italy in 1957. Like I said, I could almost smell and taste it. And it suits me because I've just had an Italian Christmas. My theme for Christmas this year was Italy, because we had Margherita, an Italian friend of my son Tycho, lodging with us in the summer. And when she left...
Seif's girlfriend.
Margherita, who's just...
I think lovely. Yeah, I love her.
And she's Milanese, so, appropriate. And when Margherita left and got her own place with Seif, the guitarist in my son's band, we kind of missed it. He's a top man. It left a void in the house. She brought a certain Italian quality. We were eating Italian food all the way through the summer. And when she left a bit of a vacuum. So I thought, right, this year's Christmas is going to be Italian. We had Genoa cake, all the wines of the fizzy sparkling was all Italian. And my sister knitted me a scarf, red, white and green, supposed to be Welsh. When it arrived, it looked Italian.
Hey!
Perfect.
Synchronicity.
So to cap off Christmas and the New Year with an Italianate movie suits me perfectly. Hold on, I'm going to reach into my bag here, because in my bag I did a little bit of homework. I've got the Enzo Ferrari biography in my bag. This one was written by Richard Williams, and I haven't read it, but I did speed read it on the train on the way in, glancing through, looking for the key moments. I'm now going to study it very carefully to find out how technically accurate that film was, story accurate. But it doesn't matter. It's a film, right? It's a movie. We didn't watch a documentary.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a drama. It's not a documentary, and it works.
Yeah, it absolutely worked. Deeply satisfying, I think, from a car fan point of view, and I think from, if you like, a human story, an emotional story, I think there's enough there to make it work. But I have one observation, not a criticism, observation about the film. Well, I don't think it was a very good film.
How so?
I think it would be a better series.
Yeah, no, that's interesting.
Imagine the Enzo Ferrari story playing out over 20 or 40 years on Netflix, where, one episode was a Mille. One episode was...
Maybe they missed a trick there. I mean, no, I agree. If you do it in that format, you could certainly do, I think, a better job of, of telling that story more accurately. You might be able to do it in a more satisfactory way. That said, there are already more series than I'm going to be able to watch and catch up on. There's, I don't need another series.
No.
On my list, so no. Yeah. Let's, it's nice to be able to tick one off in an afternoon.
But Zog, to wrap this up, thank you very much for your brilliant idea of going to see a movie in the day. I can't remember the last time I went to see a movie in the day.
I'm a big fan, yeah.
In fact, I can't even remember the last time I went to see a movie in the cinema. I think it was the last Bond film. That was the last cinema movie I saw. I haven't been since.
Well, I'm glad we got you out and we're getting you back into the habit.
Thank you very much. And I'm glad that we got you listeners listening to Gareth Jones on Speed and the first episode of our 20th season of Gareth Jones on Speed.
Thank you.
Yeah. Stick around for the next, 30-something episodes in this series, or serial, or season, however we say it. But Zog, thank you very much indeed.
I'm glad we made an afternoon of it, and yeah, let's do it again soon.
Yeah. Go and see the movie. If you like cars, you'll enjoy it. Zog, say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Or we should say arrivederci. Ciao.
That's right. Arrivederci.
For information on how to contact the show, see pictures, get song lyrics, follow us on Twitter, find our Facebook fan page, or to sponsor the show, go to garethjones.tv. Gareth Jones on Speed is made in London by Whiz Bang.
Gareth Jones on Speed!